Good morning. Welcome to the lecture on Sophocles' Oedipus the King, original title Oedipus Tyrannos. We think of the word tyrant, but actually Oedipus, Tyrannos meant for Oedipus, and in this particular play, primarily that he was an elected ruler. He didn't inherit the kingship. And this is something that Oedipus himself took pride in. And once you get familiar with the story, you will, I hope, see how important this element in there is. I'm going to be trying to do a number of things in the lecture today, but primarily to relate this particular text to something that's ongoing throughout the history of ideas and throughout the development of human artistic and literary and philosophic and everything else productivity. Tragic. The play itself is in the genre of tragedy as opposed to comedy or something else, but tragic is much more pervasive, much more universal. Tragic is meant to now stand for the overall insight that humans may reach, that you and I might reach, that people in the past and all through history have reached, after living a full human life and using their minds sharply and clearly and deeply and profoundly. They might come to the overall conclusion about life as such, that life is finally tragic. So tragic does not mean you got a 40 on your exam, especially if you didn't bother to study for it. Tragic has a much more interesting meaning in literature, and I hope by the end of this lecture I will have started you thinking about this more useful and more fruitful and more human understanding of the word tragic. For all of CVSP and all of the humanities, my main motivator is to try as best as possible to develop in critical thinking, but only via empathy. Without empathy, without the ability to put yourself in the place of other peoples, other cultures, other texts, and try to sort of get in touch with what was happening, humanly speaking, in these great works. Without this kind of empathy, critical thinking becomes a slogan. It becomes just something legalistic, something that you can maybe impress people with by being critical, but critical meaning understanding deeply, so that you can indeed have a dialogue and a conversation, and you can disagree and you can agree and all that. So I think this is at the heart of should be at the heart of all of the humanities. It certainly should be at the heart of everything we call CVSP, and it certainly, I try for it to grow in this all through my life in presenting what I present. So today in presenting this presentation of Oedipus the King in terms of a tragic vision of our human life, of our human existence, I'm going to be focusing on that aspect. So as the lecturers have been telling you, I hope right from the beginning of the course and in your classes, these great works are open to many, many different interpretations. Many interpretations will look back at these works and sort of read into them something from much later on. And that's fine. That's what makes these works great. You can take something you are interested in now and actually see elements of this in past works. My attempt, whether I fail or I don't, that's neither here nor there. What I'm going to try, and that's all we can do, try my best to try to get into the particular work, the particular mindset, the particular human experience of the peoples and of Sophocles, who represents the people that he is presenting now, this view, how they were presenting to us through the text of Oedipus the King, Oedipus Tyrannos, their view of what human life is really all about. And what I'm going to try to do throughout the thing, just to tell you what I'm going to try to do, then I'll try to do it, and then I'll try to tell you what I've done. So somebody once told us this is the best way to give any kind of a talk. Tell them what you're going to say it, develop it, and then tell them what you've said. So I'm going to try to follow that kind of an outline. So basically, as you've been working through the worlds of Gilgamesh and the Odyssey, you already have been meeting tragic elements of life in these works. They are not tragedies, they are epics, and certainly the epic of the Odyssey is much less, has far fewer tragic elements in it than his Iliad, Homer's Iliad has much more of the seeds of what then later on became tragedy, because in fact Homer was the one who set the tone for the way they thought about human life. As probably you've already been told this, that Homer's Iliad and Odyssey were like the Bible or the Quran or the Chairman Mao Red Book or the Communist Manifesto, whatever dear work you have that sort of summarizes for you some of the most important things that for your own human life. So Homer was their prophet. Homer was their teacher by their own testimony. This is what later Greeks said about him. He is the educator, the former, the trainer of all of the Greeks. So everybody who came after Homer were motivated, inspired by the way he had taught them to think about human life generally. But then, of course, as great thinkers, they then took Homer into different alleys, into history, Herodotus and Thucydides, into law. The great lawmakers were following up some of the basic items he gave about the universe we live in and its law and its lawfulness. But certainly the two main ones we're concerned with now in this first part of 205 is the tragic and the rationalistic views of human life. And each one of these is an umbrella term for many. There's great difference amongst people, but they all have something in common sufficiently that we could identify them as tragic, and others that we can identify them as rationalistic. And so to help you get into this very broad ocean of thinking, and never think it's simple, but you need to start off with something clear. A tragic view, I'm going to try to show you, presents life as not being made for us humans. Human life was not made for us. The universe is just the universe. It's the cosmos. It's the universe. It has its laws. It has its concerns. It's not concerned for us. You'll have an example of this much later when you get to evolution and Freud. Freud will tell you that evolution is not concerned for the human being. All right? So this is not something that's just specific to the ancient world. All right? Basically, a view that the world is primarily is what it is in itself. It has its laws. It has its structures. It has a dynamism. But it isn't made for us. So one way to remember that is in the slogan, no promises made, no promises broken. Why do you think the world should reward you if you're good? Why do you think the world should be punishing those who are corrupt and evil? Why? I mean, why do you think such thoughts? They're nice thoughts. They're rational thoughts. And as the message of Oedipus the king is, you have nothing better than your reason. You must use it. But don't think your reason is sufficient to penetrate into the mysteries of this cosmos, the universe. You must use reason. So he presents Oedipus as the model of the human mind, the rationalist par excellence. He uses his mind. He uses his mind when he is told by the god, through the god Apollo, that his fate, his destiny, is to kill his father and marry his mother. What does he do? Simply accept it passively. Que sera, sera. That's fate. And so sitting around maybe, waiting for the day when he'll sleep with his mother and kill his father. No, he does the rational, moral, human thing to do, the excellent thing to do. He tries to do his best to get out of it. He goes to the god Apollo and tries to get him to help him. And maybe I'll just rush on to this particular quotation from the text. See what happens when he goes to the god Apollo to try to get something out of this. Apollo, he goes to Apollo, and the lower point there, Apollo fails to inform him of his true parents, because what we find out, what we all know as audience anyway, is that the parents that he's living with are not his true parents. They have adopted him, but they haven't bothered to tell him. He thinks these are his parents. So he goes to Apollo to see whether they can get around this horrible fate. Maybe something can happen. And Apollo doesn't bother to tell him. So what does he do? These are lines 868 to lines 875 in the text that you have, the one at the bottom there. And so, unknown to mother and father, I set out for Delphi. Staha. He wasn't able to, he couldn't get himself to go and say, Mama, I'm going to be sleeping with you, and Dad, I'm going to kill you. He couldn't, so he does, very understandable empathy. Put yourself in their place. Don't get into some kind of an external moralistic view of what he should have done or shouldn't have done. Try to put yourself in his place. All right? Unknown to mother and father, I set out for Delphi. Delphi is the center of truth for all of the peoples of this day. When you wanted to know what was going to happen in the future, you wanted to know whether you should go to war or not, people would come to Delphi, a place in Greece, where the center of the god Apollo, because now the god Apollo was the central god of this particular play, and one of his priestesses would go into a trance, and the god would speak through her and deliver these prophecies. And so one of the prophecy of that you're going to kill your father, marry your mother, had come in this way. He goes there hoping he can do something about this. He sets out for Delphi, and the god Apollo spurned me, sent me away, denied the facts I came for. But first, so, number one, the gods don't help you. The gods mean, that's what life's all about. Why should you expect anything to help you? The gods, well, they're not interested in you, right? Denied the facts I came for. But in addition, you see, this is the malevolent part of the way they understood the universe. This is the truly tragic part. The universe isn't just indifferent to you and me. There's something malevolent in it, something malicious, something even perhaps sadistic. Look at this is the way the play is being presented. I did this play twice. I had to live with it for months, with every single word, and bring it to life through actors. Believe me, you learn much more than just sort of reading it, as kind of a text in a course. First, he flashed before my eyes a future great with pain, terror, disaster. I can hear him cry, "You are fated to couple with your mother. You will bring a breed of children into the light no man can bear to see. You will kill your father." And perhaps, if you want to give it that kind of a term, but it's certainly the gods representing the powers that be, what finally affects our human life in any tragic understanding of the world. You're not going to get any help outside of yourself. You're not going to get help anywhere else. If anything, the world is under some kind of malevolent curse. And you'll see that this literature, there's often the notion of a curse. Oedipus is under a curse from the past, whatever. But we don't have time to go into all of these details, because I really only have time to try to help you get a feeling for the tragic way somebody would finally understand the world is if they were in this kind of a situation. So he does the rational thing. He goes to the god Apollo. He tries to see whether he can get something serious from the powers that be. They don't help him. So what does he do? He runs away from home. In running away from home, of course, what happens? He goes towards the city where his true parents are. All unknowingly, you see. He's not wicked. He's unconscious of what he's doing when he does something evil. He doesn't want to do anything evil. He wants to do the best possible thing. He doesn't want to do anything to harm his parents. He doesn't even want to kind of insult them by even mentioning it in front of them. He runs away from home, doing what he thinks, reason is able to get you out of what you have to get into. He goes away from home. He winds up going towards the exact place where his true parents are. And let me just continue this, since I've started on this track. When I ad-lib these lectures, each time I will present it in a different way, but each time trying to get as best I know how to each new time that I give this lecture, trying to help you get a sense of what's going on. This is the temple at Delphi, the ruins of it now, of course, and a bust of the god Apollo. Delphi is sort of midway between what is Thrace and Macedonia and different places. No longer Greece. Mount Olympus is way up at the top there. In other words, Delphi is the northern part of Greece. Athens and Sparta, there you'll be. Okay, the oracle at Delphi. Okay, you get the Mulhaq, Layla Abdul Latif telling you what's going to happen in the future, or Mike Hayek, or Mubarak, all the wonderful people making billions of dollars on your credulity. But anyway, this is the sort of thing that they saw Apollo would do, tell them something that they couldn't see. The sun will rise in the east tomorrow. Oedipus will kill his father, marry his mother. Socrates is the wisest man in Athens. Hopefully you'll be introduced to that when you come to Plato, because Socrates is a very important figure there. And of course, CVSB is the most enjoyable and beneficial program in the cosmos. All these are true. If you want your own revelations, log on to www.oracle@delphi.com. Okay. But anyway, this is the story. Childhood days in Corinth, off to Thebes, running away from home. showdown at a crossroads on his way there, but he wasn't headed for Corinth. He was just moving away from Thebes, really. But when he gets to a crossroads outside of the city of Corinth, where three ways meet, all this is referred to in the text. There's a rendezvous with MS Sphinx. So the Sphinx here is not Abul Hol of Egypt. It's a bird. There are many different versions of the Sphinx. This is a half bird, half human. In this picture by Gustave Moreau, it's his own fancy of it. But basically, what this represented was some kind of a part of the divine world, the cosmic powers that be, where this figure put a curse on the city of Thebes, whereby no handsome young man like many of you here or myself could go in or out of Thebes without this Sphinx sort of getting sexually attracted to them, wanting to mate with them, but giving them a chance. If they answer the drop quiz, the riddle, they can go in and out safely. If they don't answer the riddle, she has sex with them and then kills them. Have you heard of a praying mantis? Any biology students? Well, that was the sort of way they pictured, their gods just simply represented all kinds of powers. All right, some of them, did good things for you, but many of them were just sort of part of the explanation of why vicious things happen to you in life. So basically, the drop quiz, which I'm sure all of you can answer because you're all so brilliant, okay? What walks on 4 feet at dawn, 2 at noon, and 3 at dusk? Handsome. Man, the human. Okay? And this, of course, is the irony of the whole play. He knows the answer mathematically, scientifically, logically. Brilliant man, Reason, top reason. But reason is very, very limited. The greatest mind cannot know what's really at the heart of what's happening in human life. This is the tragic element of tragedy, the negative element of tragedy. We'll be talking more about the positive element in tragedy, in what is tragic. So, the human. Okay, so again, in this cosmic setup, when the right answer is given, the Sphinx has to leave. And, the curse is lifted, in other words, and people now can go in and out of Thebes safely. What has happened? He has saved Thebes from the curse of the Sphinx, triumphant entry into Thebes. He's elected Tyrannus, king, in this translation in English. He's awarded the widow of the recently assassinated king. Their king has just been assassinated. But, of course, we all know the story, which he retells in the text when you read it, that on his way, before he met the Sphinx, at this crossroads, there was a bunch of Range Rovers and motorcycles and and the leader there was attacking him. He defends himself. Defending himself, he kills them all except for one, because one has to come back and tell us the story. Remember, this is fiction, all right? But he kills them all. And he kills especially the one who has attacked him, who was the leader, unknowing who this was. Pure self-defense. There's no moral flaw here. There's no pride. There's no arrogance here. There's no wickedness. This is just the way life is, Habibi. Sometimes, you're defending yourself. You don't know what you're doing. You wind up killing the king of Thebes. But, as the audience well knows, and he doesn't know this until the end of the story, this guy is also his true papa. This is his daddy. This is his father. This is his real father, the king of Thebes. And so who is the widow who he's awarded now? His mama. All right? So he winds up totally unconscious, totally blind, doing his best to avoid anything that's wicked, anything that's wrong, and winds up going right into the trap, the cosmic trap that has been set for him, the tragic cosmic trap. Now, you see, this is also, pay attention when you're reading the story. Boy, pay attention to how Sophocles is presenting this guy. Not a word here or a phrase there or something there in the thing. Take a look at the action of the whole, what's happening. Now follows an ideal reign as leader and protector of the polis. The polis is the most important thing now for this Athenian world. You cannot be a full human being outside of your polis. A polis is a community that's sufficient to survive, but is small enough so that everybody takes part in it very seriously and very actively. the free citizens. Don't think of democracy as it develops later on. But this is one of the first experiments we know of true democracy, where all the free citizens, all the males, no women, no slaves, and many of the slaves were Greeks, whom had been conquered in their wars with each other. So it wasn't sort of an ideal picture, but it was certainly a wonderful new item in human history, where to be a full human being meant to be a full and active and committed citizen of the polis, where your whole life is shaped by the polis. You get from the polis and you give for the polis. Tiresias, who represents the cosmic forces and the powers and the gods, he's a prophet. But the word prophet has so many meanings. Be careful how you use it. He simply is somebody who can tell the future. He's a psychic. He's a fortune teller. But if you read the passage just the way Sophocles presents it, between Oedipus and the prophet, you're careful there, read it, and circle each time Sophocles uses the word city, which is the word for polis, and each time Sophocles uses the word pain. And notice how Sophocles has carefully set up this context between those who are concerned for the polis, for humanity, and those who are concerned only for pain. Oedipus is the one who's concerned for the polis in that passage. The so-called prophet is the one who's only concerned for pain. And some people, a common interpretation of this play is that, look, the problem here of Oedipus is he has a quick temper, he has a trigger temper. He loses his temper and he starts to fight with the prophet and all this stuff. I think that if you get into the understanding of anger and pride in this particular culture, he would be proud had he not responded the way he responded. Had he not gotten angry at somebody who comes and says, I have the answer to the plague that is hitting this city, because that's how the play begins. The play now begins after having been the leader of this place for a long time, and the people come and sort of say, what a wonderful leader you have been. You've saved us from the Sphinx, and you've continued to be such a wonderful political leader. Now please save us from this latest curse that's been hit upon Thebes. A new curse, a plague. Everything, all human life stops at every level. Read the details at the beginning of the play. All right? What does he say? He says, your suffering is worse than mine. I suffer for you. I will do everything possible. I'm going to do everything I can. I'm going to find out who it is. Why is this? So he sends to Apollo. He brings in Tiresias. He then sends for all of the eyewitnesses of what had happened. Because you see, the king had been killed, and the rulers, Creon, didn't bother to avenge him. And in this system, all right, you do not avenge the murder of a king. Just like you do not suffer if you kill a father and marry a mother. All right, that's the key. It's objective. Has nothing to do with subjective feelings or motivation or anger and pride. We're so concerned with feelings these days that we can't read ancient literature or medieval literature or anything outside of our own sort of feeling focused and sensitivity focused culture. We lose a lot of understanding of human life when we miss that. This man gets angry because he's the ruler of this polis. The polis is under a plague, a horrible curse. This prophet comes in and says, I know the answer, but I'm not going to tell you, because it's going to cause pain. It's going to cause me pain, and it's going to cause you pain. If he doesn't get angry at that point, he's not a full human being. He's not a full citizen of the polis. So please think again, if you come across any of these common interpretations, that Oedipus suffers because of his pride, because of his anger. All right? He's human. He's imperfect. He thinks too much about his own reason. That's his real pride. If there's any pride, is he has too much confidence in the power of his own reason. But Sophocles, I'm talking about Sophocles, not me or you. Read the text. Do it as a play sometime. All right. Sophocles is continually putting things in there to let you know this is a wonderful ruler. This is the model of a democratic ruler. When he thinks Creon and using his political mind, now, conspiracy. The prophet doesn't want to tell me, but then when he gets angry, he accuses me. Why should I trust him? Why should I believe him? Creon was the ruler and didn't bother to do anything about it. How can I trust him? It must be that these two decided to kill the king and take power. And I messed up their plans by coming in right at that moment, and they made me king. So, following, you see, this line of thinking, very understandable. Put yourself in his place. All right? You come to a point where in the play, he's, accusing Creon. And the chorus, representing the people, they tell him, don't punish him. And what does he say? He says, "What if I do what you tell me, it's going to cost me my life. But if that's what you want, I will do it." This is pride. This is arrogance. This is a moral flaw, a tragic flaw. His tragic flaw is his overconfidence in his own reason. This is the tragedian debating with the rationalist. You're going to come to rationalism through Plato, Socrates and Plato and Aristotle in the next passage, okay? And that's a different way of understanding life. Again, there you're going to have to put yourself into their place and see why some people think it is finally rationalistic. That's another adventure in this particular course you're taking. That's the next one, all right? But right now, what the tragedian is telling the rationalists who are with them at the same time in Athens, equally having faith in reason, but one says reason is limited, the other one says reason has no limits, you'll see when we come to the Republic, if it is used properly, if we change the whole institutions and educational system and formation, and if it's used properly, reason can bring us a happy polis. If, the big if of Plato's. And if we don't, Plato then will say, well then too bad, then we're going to have misery and corruption. But there is a possibility in the rationalist view. The tragedian thinks that that's just simply, that's unrealistic. You're not preparing humans for life if you think you're going to prepare them to think that if they're good, they're going to get rewarded, and if they're punished, along that system. The tragedian thinks simply the world is not made for you. No promises made, no promises broken. And the whole story of Oedipus is to present this in dramatic fashion. All right? And if you don't get the point, he tells it to you again at the end. He tells it to you at the climax, and then he tells it to you at the end of the play. All right? So if you're still wanting to read it in some kind of later interpretation or from outside of it, all right, Sophocles is appealing to you in the climax of the play when he finds out he's the murderer. And then at the very end, this is what life is all about, Habibi. Great reason, brilliant man, great power, wonderful ruler. Does this assure for him happiness? No, you see. But, that's the but. Now what's the whole point then of why is this tragic view popular all through the centuries? Why does it appeal to a lot of people? Because the other side of this coin is that precisely once you become aware that this is what the world is like, this challenges you as a human to be the benefactor of mankind, the Prometheus in their mythology. Let me go down, let me show you a picture of Prometheus. Prometheus is the legendary figure who sneaks into Mount Olympus where all the gods are, and they are refusing to give fire to humanity for whatever reason. But imagine humanity deprived of fire. So he sneaks in, steals fire, brings fire to humanity. He's the benefactor of mankind, not the gods. They're only concerned with themselves and in the way they understood the world. And basically what happens though? The tragic element, he is punished by the gods. But he gives, this is the heart of the tragic vision. He's punished, he's tied, and there are different forms that these myths are given in, but the basic one is that he's tied to a rock, and an eagle comes and pecks away at his liver every day. Then overnight the liver grows up again, and the next day the eagle comes back and pecks away at his liver, and that's what he's going to have forever and ever and ever. All right? So what's the point here? The point here is that you're living in a world that isn't made for you. Don't be surprised if everything doesn't go nicely and well, especially if it doesn't go the way your reason operates. However, you have only your reason. That's your great power and your morality to follow your reason. Do that and you'll do three things. You won't get happiness, that's the tragic element. You will suffer, as the tragic hero often suffers, the end. But you'll have done three wonderful things that makes the tragic vision appealing all through the centuries. One, dignity for yourself. You yourself will feel like you've done something, you're worth something. You're not just a nobody, you're a somebody from the Homeric world. You've had that already, I think, in your lectures. I'm a somebody, I'm not a nakira, I'm not a nothing. Since the world isn't going to give me anything, I'm going to give myself something, all right? And I'm going to give humanity something, not just give myself something. Oedipus doesn't just give himself something. He saves the polis. by doing what he does, refusing to avoid pain, refusing to go for self-interest, pursuing the truth all the way through out of a sense of rational duty and responsibility and morality to humanity. So number two, my second reward, my first reward will be self-respect. Izzat nafs, not kibriya, not hajrafi. Right? I have dignity, right? Karami. And secondly, I will have served humanity, since nothing else is serving humanity. If we all give up and just decide to be slobs, and mediocre utilitarians or hedonists or Epicureans or whatever, the world serves us up. All right, the world won't go forward. Humanity won't have anybody. No Prometheus, no benefactors, no Oedipus. All right, no Socrates. We will see coming up. And the third thing is, of course, for the tragic thing, you will have immortality. Not the immortality that Gilgamesh had tried to get, not the immortality but the immortality that you had in Homer, primarily. Fame, immortality. People will read about you in the year 2015 at the AUB, CBSP. All right, your name you'll have the immortality of name. So that's the tragic menu. That's the tragic offering. All right, the world is not made for you. All right? No promises made, no promises broken. Okay? Don't be surprised. But you have greatness in you. You have a mind. You can be moral. You can be dignified. You can do something for humanity. All right? It's these double thing, and it's the positive side that makes tragic. So please put out of your minds that tragic is somehow negative, pessimistic. You may disagree with it, for heaven's sake. You don't have to agree with it. But it's not negative, pessimistic. The thrust of tragic all through into atheistic existentialism in the 20th century, into Nietzsche and atheistic existentialism, but also as an element of all the great systems of thought throughout the centuries, that there is a tragic element in life. Plato will put it in his cave, forced liberation in the cave, all right? The murder of Socrates, right? Tragic element is part of life. Don't think, that somehow you're going to change the world through astrophysics and through biology and through Hawkins and your Dawkins and your, all the gurus of today whom you're all sort of learning to worship, all right? It's going to be through your own human activity, the use of the best powers you have to do something for yourself, to do something for humanity, and that's what life is all about. And don't expect you're ever going to do it without suffering. This is the message. Without suffering, no insight. For this was the motto of the tragedians. You want to avoid suffering like Tiresias, then you'll never grow up. You'll never be a human. You'll be like Tiresias. You might have power, like Gilgamesh at the beginning, great power. That's how I read Gilgamesh, by the way. I think the maturity of Gilgamesh is not that he comes to terms with death. It's the fact that he refuses to accept this stupid, irrational approach. You are going to die like Enkidu. You're going to go to this horrible place. Don't do anything about it. Just sit back and, make the most of life. He refuses that. This is the tragic hero. All right? And in doing that, he makes a name for himself. He brings back so many wonderful things to the people there. They say that that's what the epic does. We did the epic of Gilgamesh here as well. Believe me, when you do it as a play, you get out meanings that you might miss when you're just looking at it through some kind of, nice optic. Okay? This is the tragic hero. Gilgamesh is a tragic hero, not in a tragedy, but in the epic. By doing what he does, he brings back wonderful things to his peoples. He gets a true name for himself. The name at first, what kind of a name is that? The people hate him and he's doing all kinds of horrible things. Is he a true modern man? He's much more of a modern man than Odyssey. So get away from these simplistic things of is Odysseus more of a modern man? He appeals to the scientific spirit in us, but Gilgamesh appeals to the challenging spirit in us, the spirit of challenge, of not accepting anything that sounds so irrational and stupid, no matter what source it comes from. All right. Why should he accept the fact that he has to die? When Utnapishtim, he's got a scientific mind. He's got a wonderful mind, Gilgamesh. Somebody has escaped. I'm not going to accept this stupid thing, this horrible, irrational fate. Everybody has to go to this horrible place. Not just death. Today people might think of death sort of abstractly. But he's seen what kind of fate is awaiting you at death. Utnapishtim has avoided it. There's a single You know, there's a falsification here of that theory that there's no that. He wants to go and explore it. He does everything. He suffers, and he becomes. Can't even be. They don't even recognize him anymore. You know, he's become so. He's given himself to finding some solid answer for humanity, and that's what progress is all about. Throughout history, progress in every field has been when people refuse to just accept the accepted truth, whatever it was, be it religious in the past or be it atheistic in the world today, in the university world today. Don't just accept the received wisdom of the day. You know, go through it for your own personal, finally, conviction of it. So this is the primary thing I want to try to introduce you to when you're thinking about tragic. There are many, many items here that one would want to cover. I will cover just a few of the things on that very first page if I have, how much time? Oh, I have some time. Making any sense? Come on, be honest. I'm not grading you. You're not my students. You getting anything out of this? Yeah. Send him down to Hades. Anyway, you know, I'm challenging you to think about all of this. Let's go back a little bit and let's go over because the first page has some basic items in it, 3 basic items. Homer's Cosmos, the Polis, and Apollo. So let me say something about those 3 items on the first page. Homer had taught the Greeks, and in fact everybody up to the time of when Darwin made the evolutionary model much more popular. The universe we're in is a fixed system, but very much full of laws. Now this can have great meaning at various levels. In the tragic meaning, because you are fundamentally blind to these laws, you never know what's going to happen. But there are laws. So when he kills his father and marries his mother, he's going to get punished, baby. All right? There are laws. The scientific impulse, the philosophical impulse will be more that there are laws, and we're going to use reason and science, and we're going to discover more and more of it, and we're going to get into more and more understanding of it, and finally in the modern period, control of it, because it's a fixed system full of laws open to being studied in a scientific way, and laws are there to be found. So Homer had taught them, well, this is a big step away from Gilgamesh. And Gilgamesh is just it's a whimsical world. You don't know quite what's happening. You know, there's an assembly of the gods, but nobody bothers to pay any attention to what they've done. They lie and they cheat, and then Ishtar comes and says, oh, you know, it's all Enlil's fault. Habibti, you were part of the council at the beginning. All right? He had a dream. Habibi, you're the one who gave them the dream. If you know, you see, the whole atmosphere there is whimsical, and it's sort of, you know, unclear and ambiguous. And this is what makes for a pessimistic view of human life, if you like. But even in that world, you see, the focus is on the heroism of Gilgamesh. If you followed anything of what I said, think about it at least. In the world of Odyssey, now when we come to the Greek world, no, it's much more orderly. You know, Zeus comes to represent, certainly by the time of Sophocles, not too much sooner. I wouldn't speak about that at the time of Homer, really. That's speaking before the fact. He comes to be identified with justice. But what is justice? Justice has to be defined. You can't just use these terms, hey, kif makan. Justice means something different. Every single system, every philosophical system has a different understanding of justice. Every religious interpretation, theology has a different understanding of justice. And certainly, justice here didn't mean what anybody else thinks about it. It's what Homer taught them to think about it. Justice is order. The cosmos means order. The cosmos is the word for universe, but it primarily means order, and it has the connotation also of beauty. Order is beauty. Therefore, this whole world is a fight between beauty and ugliness, not between good and evil, not between rationality and ignorance, not between faithfulness and love and treachery in other systems. Here, the system is very simple. It's aesthetic. It's beauty. There's a beautiful order there. When everything is in place, it's beautiful. When you shake the system, it gets ugly. And that's what's happening in Sophocles. He's shaking the system. He's making it ugly. Killing a father, marrying a mother, that's ugly. Whether he knew what he was doing, whether he wasn't doing it out of a wonderful motive, that's not important. That's human. You see, that's personal. Nothing personal in the system. The Homer taught him the world is the world. But you do something. Your heroes, the physical heroes, and Odysseus, the mental hero. So we're in Homer's cosmos, a world of, and in the Odyssey, if you look at Book 8, 579 to 580, the one place where Homer speaks about kind of justifying why there's so much evil in the world. He's not a philosopher. He wasn't even thinking about that issue at the time so much. He has some comments on it where, letting us know basically the world is a combination of where we're determined and free. This whole thing, are we determined or free, is such an abstract, silly, impersonal, inhuman notion that only some abstract philosophers could ever thought of. The great literature always presents you in the truth of humanity. In some deep ways we are conditioned. In some deep ways we have freedom. The challenge is to discover much more what the conditioning is, what the freedom is, etc. But to say, are we msayyar or mukhayyar? This is a theological view. It's not in the Quran. All right? We are msayyar wa mukhayyar in terms of all great literature, all great books. Because that's humanity. And otherwise, why would you want to even pay attention to it if it's telling you you're all determined? Habibi, I'm not determined. I know when I could have done something different. I didn't have to do that. Come on now, and then I can figure it out philosophically. But there's an existential truth that I as a human have to start with, so that I'll reject any stupid polarization. Musayyar aw mukhayyar. What do you mean by musayyar? What do you mean by mukhayyar? In what aspects? So this is what Homer was teaching, however. The world is fixed. It's a system. When it's in order, it's beautiful. It's very complicated and intricate. There are 3 dimensions that are working: the cosmic level, the political level, the private level. They're all interacting. And therefore, it's ambiguous. It's difficult to really penetrate just with human reason. All right? This is the stuff of the tragic world. It's a very complicated world you're living in. All right? And it's ambiguous. The order is never easy. Aletheia, the word for truth. The truth is something concealed, and it only reveals itself when it wants to. That's the aletheia, the concealed revealing itself when it wants to. And you can't force it to reveal itself in Homer's world or the tragic world. All right? The rational world will try to say, well, if you use the right rational systems, you can get into the mystery. But this is the world here. The world is given. It's just there. Nobody made it. There's no origins. There's no God who made it. There's no creator or God. The gods are just powers and forces as part of this whole fixed system. The cosmos, nature, one monism, one reality, okay, where there are each thing in it has its place, has its share, has its lot. Zeus is justice, meaning he observes, he primarily is the one who makes sure that things are always in their place. But Homer says in the Odyssey, Zeus gives more evil than good. Why do we sort of refuse to take a look at these items? Because we want to sort of read a whole epic and just reduce it into some nice, nice conclusions. That's all it is. The world is not, there's no great, wonderful, all-powerful good God, or as we will see with Plato, goodness, the form of goodness you'll see next week. There's nothing like that in the world. Things are a mixture of good and evil. Just like every human is a mixture of good and evil. It's like every society is a mixture of good and evil. So the cosmic world, the divine world, is not different from the human world. It's a projection into that. And if it exists, it means it just simply, is a more powerful aspect of what we are doing in our human and social life. Okay, human excellence resides in heroines, enhanced precisely when achieved within this particular view. Because of such a challenge, heroism becomes even more heroic, because there's heroism in every system. But in systems where you're going to be rewarded, there's sort of a less of a bite. You still have to suffer. Any hero in any system has to, lay his life on the line and suffer. So it's not, some heroes suffer and some don't. A hero, by definition, someone who's ready to suffer for something that they consider is more important than just pain. All right? As soon as you get into the world of pain, you get into the world of hedonism, Epicureanism, utilitarianism, the masters of life of pain and pleasure, and and the consumer world of today. And this is not the world that has made the universe, the world we live in today, as great as it is. Morality, therefore, is primarily a function of observing the given order. He says, I am guilty. He accepts responsibility. He doesn't try to give you extenuating circumstances because he's not living in that system. Today, he would get a lawyer. A good lawyer would sort of say the guy didn't know what he was doing. He was blind. He was defending himself. Why should he be punished? Oedipus is a good citizen of this world. Empathy. He believes in this world. If you believe and that's the way the world is, then this is how you would behave. And this is greatness in the way you behave and mediocrity in the way you behave. A somebody versus a nobody. Everybody else in this play is a nobody. The clashes between the somebody, Oedipus, and the nobodies. The prophet, a crayon first of all, and then the prophet, and then his wife, and then the shepherd. And all of them have the same message. When they see this guy is the one who did it. Look, forget it. Forget it. Don't pursue it because it's going to cause you pain. If he listens to that and saves himself from pain, who suffers? The polis is under a curse. This is Sophocles. Read how the author is presenting it. By doing what he does, he isn't just stupid and an idealist. He is saving humanity. He's protecting the polis. He's doing his political, social duty. This is the Oedipus of this play, following these things. Because number 2, the main point there, the polis, for the Athenian, this is not just a city-state. It's not the city or the state. It's the necessary condition for living a truly human life. And Oedipus, therefore, is being presented by Sophocles as the upholder and guardian of authentic humanity, par excellence. The third major item there, Apollo, this is the god of this work. The other gods are all there, but now Apollo takes precedence because Sophocles, as a good Athenian citizen, was a general in the army of Pericles, a great poet, one of the great tragedians, and a priest of the god Apollo. This was the sort of the all-round, the well-rounded citizen, that later on the Renaissance ideal, and then up to 1960 in Lebanon at AUB, we still had that mentality before it became money, and your clients now, and you're paying money, so we have to sort of give you good grades. Whatever, the whole world has changed quite a bit just in the last 50 years, even here at AUB. But basically, this is the polis, why Tiresias is the villain, not Oedipus, from this polis mentality. And then Apollo's 2 great ideals for human life. This is the last thing I'll talk about, but it's very important. 2 great ideals, all right? You have the 10 commandments. You have love your neighbor as yourself, all that stuff in monotheism, all right? The guidelines here is, this is how you should live your life, according to these 2 major goals and ideals for your life. Know thyself. Self-identity. Know who you are. Seek to know more and more. Not just get in touch with your feelings and how you feel how you react, but rather get to know more objectively. What are your true powers? What are your true limitations? What can you do? What can't you do? What is your place in the whole system? Okay? Seek to do this actively. And this is how Sophocles presents Oedipus as the hero of the god Apollo. He's doing this all the way through, seeking to know who he is, at the cost of his own life even, all right? And balance is best means. Don't work to get a 70, but, don't get a 50, that's stupid. Don't go for the 90 and be a nerd, a bookworm. Go for the 70, balance. Balance means always go for the best in whatever you are doing. This is the meaning of the injunction there. You're a political leader. Go for the best way of doing things. He sends to Apollo, he brings in the prophet, he sends out the investigators, all right? He gives in to the people. He's doing his job in the best possible way. Balance is best. You're a student, all right? Then be serious about getting the maximum of knowledge you can. Do your best so that you can really be a support and a contributor to your society. Do your best. Wherever you are, whatever situation you're in, not just in the big heroic things, but in life, follow these 2 injunctions. And this is a key to understanding Sophocles and Sophocles' play, Oedipus the King. From within itself, this is what I'm claiming. You can disagree with me totally. Thank you.